The house where Pluto is placed reveals the area of life where transformation occurs through experiences of power and powerlessness. Pluto exposes which patterns must be released, eliminated, or fundamentally transformed at the deepest levels of being. Whichever house Pluto occupies carries intense energetic pressure as the individual comes into direct contact with powerful inner forces. This is the life area where control struggles emerge, but also where the most profound personal transformation becomes possible.
When Pluto is placed in the 7th house, transformation unfolds through relationships, partnerships, and one-to-one encounters. This placement brings intense experiences of power and powerlessness within personal relationships, forcing the individual to confront deep psychological dynamics. Pluto dissolves superficial bonds and exposes hidden motivations, control patterns, and unconscious fears that operate within partnerships. Here, the desire for unity often turns into dependency, dominance, or the expectation that another person will provide wholeness or salvation. Rather than taking responsibility for personal desires and choices, the individual may unconsciously project unresolved inner conflicts onto partners. This can lead to relationships marked by manipulation, obsession, betrayal, or profound emotional crises. Partners and spouses may embody Plutonic qualities, powerful, controlling, transformative, or psychologically intense individuals. Through these encounters, the individual is repeatedly pushed towards self-awareness and inner integration. The true task of Pluto in the 7th house is not control, but transformation. Only by releasing dependency and power struggles can relationships become spaces of deep psychological honesty, mutual empowerment, and authentic spiritual connection. When Pluto is placed in the 8th house, transformation unfolds through shared resources, other people's money, inheritance, taxes, insurance, loss, and encounters with death in both literal and symbolic forms. This placement points to an individual with strong, penetrating insight, persuasive power, and an intense will. Once a decision is made, this person rarely gives up and is driven to uncover what lies beneath the surface of life. Pluto in the 8th house grants a deep fascination with the unknown, the hidden, and the taboo. The individual may feel drawn to occult subjects, psychological depth, crisis situations, and subjects society tends to avoid or repress. There is a powerful capacity to investigate underlying causes, expose concealed truths, and transform what has been neglected or feared. This placement gives the ability to mobilize enormous inner energy in order to create, acquire, or control desired outcomes, sometimes with almost magical intensity. However, the 8th house is also the domain where the individual encounters forces greater than personal will. For this reason, whatever is created or accumulated through obsessive control or manipulation may eventually be taken away by circumstances beyond one's power. Pluto's transformative force in this house can be highly constructive when directed toward healing, research, crisis management, and large-scale regenerative processes. The individual has the potential to bring together many elements and resources to produce profound change, particularly in situations involving collective assets or shared responsibility. At the same time, power struggles related to a partner's finances, inheritance, taxes, or insurance matters may arise. These challenges can become deeply transformative if handled consciously. In extreme situations, learning to step back, avoid prolonged battles, and seek solutions that benefit all parties becomes essential. When Pluto operates under strong tension, money, sexuality, or attraction may be used as instruments of power and control. In severely unbalanced expressions, destructive or sadistic tendencies can emerge. The ultimate lesson of Pluto in the 8th house is surrender, not to weakness, but to transformation through conscious engagement with forces larger than the self. When Pluto is placed in the 9th house, transformation occurs through personal belief systems, worldview, meaning, and lived experience. With this placement, the individual often feels an inner pressure to develop powerful beliefs, ideals, or philosophies that guide life and give it direction. There is frequently a strong attraction to ritualistic, occult, philosophical, or belief-based systems that emphasize power, truth, and ultimate meaning. In its more challenging expression, this placement can manifest as dogmatism, intellectual arrogance, or an intense need to convince others of one's own truth. The individual may unconsciously attempt to validate personal beliefs by preaching them to others. Transformation begins when the person becomes aware of this pattern and recognizes that the need to persuade others often reflects an inner struggle for certainty. Through this realization, the individual gradually opens to different perspectives and accepts that truth may take many forms, depending on each person's lived experience. Pluto in the 9th house is commonly associated with profound life experiences that, over time, radically reshape the individual's understanding of God, truth, morality, and the meaning of human existence. Belief systems and guiding principles undergo deep transformation, often more than once throughout life. This placement also suggests that the potential for rebirth may be found through higher education, philosophy, law, foreign cultures, long journeys, and the development of personal values and ethical frameworks. Encounters with different worldviews can act as catalysts for deep inner change. When Pluto operates under strong tension, crises may arise in foreign countries, legal matters, or belief-related conflicts. At its higher expression, Pluto in the 9th house supports the formation of complex intellectual concepts and the ability to engage deeply with abstract ideas, wisdom traditions, and universal truths. When Pluto is placed in the 10th house, transformation unfolds through the individual's public role, career path, social status, and power struggles with authority and established systems. Because the 4th and 10th houses form an axis related to parental figures, this placement may reflect a parent who embodies Plutonic traits, controlling, manipulative, emotionally intense, or demanding. The pressure of Pluto in the 10th house often manifests as intolerance toward authority, resentment toward figures of power, and a deep inner compulsion to become visible, recognized, and acknowledged by society. There is frequently an overwhelming drive to reach a position of influence or significance in the outer world. While this individual may indeed achieve a powerful or prominent social position, the true transformation requires a long and often painful reassessment of values, ambitions, and definitions of success. As a result, the person may need to radically change their relationship with worldly achievement, authority, fame, and professional identity. At its higher expression, Pluto in the 10th house symbolizes the ability to see beyond the surface of authority and to develop a deeper sense of responsibility in the use of power. The potential for rebirth lies within professional life, long-term goals, and the pursuit of meaningful achievement. This placement carries extremes, the individual may rise to the highest levels of public recognition, or, conversely, experience public downfall or shame. It is often associated with roles that demand immense responsibility, endurance, and psychological strength. Because the 10th house represents visibility and Pluto symbolizes power, this placement carries the unconscious message, "I must be seen as powerful." Ultimately, transformation occurs when the individual learns to integrate personal ambition with collective responsibility and to realize the self through meaningful participation in social life rather than domination or control. With Pluto in the 11th house, transformation occurs through friendships, social groups, collective ideals, and team dynamics. Here, Pluto often manifests as an intense pressure to be accepted by others, and a deep, sometimes unconscious drive to achieve goals that are not yet clearly defined. For transformation to take place in future plans and long-term projects, fixed ideas and rigid expectations usually need to be dismantled. In these individuals, the future can become so dominant that the present moment is neglected. There is a strong focus on what will be rather than what is. Those with Pluto in the 11th house must learn that the fulfillment of their deepest hopes for the future does not come from relying on others for validation or support. Instead, true transformation happens when they recognize that their creative goals must be reshaped and aligned with broader social needs, while still taking responsibility for their own inner authority. This placement suggests that personal growth and psychological transformation are often triggered through friendships, group involvement, and collective efforts. Whether positively or negatively, these individuals tend to have a powerful influence on the people around them. They may seek out communities or organizations that can help them reach their ambitions, yet they may also experience power struggles within groups. Colleagues or peers can obstruct their goals, or the individual may become overly identified with a subgroup, allowing manipulation to prevent genuine transformation. Conflicts with the established social order are common, as Pluto here challenges existing systems. Transformation accelerates when the individual truly understands that everyone within a group is equal and free, and that power does not need to be enforced to be real. With Pluto in the 12th house, transformation occurs through crisis, unconscious imagery, inner limitations, isolation, and confrontation with what is hidden. The 12th house represents suppressed energies, fears that are difficult to face, and psychological material that often remains outside conscious awareness. When Pluto is placed here, the individual may fear their own power and instinctively repress it. In this position, Pluto requires the person to transform their emotional life by anchoring themselves to a deeper belief system or a higher truth, one capable of lifting them out of emotional confusion and inner chaos. This process of inner reorientation often demands prolonged periods of solitude and withdrawal from social life, as close interactions with others may reactivate unresolved patterns the individual is attempting to transcend. There is a strong need to remain alert to recurring tendencies toward self-punishment, guilt, and unconscious self-sabotage. When Pluto's energy is consciously integrated, it grants the capacity to endure life's harsh conditions, to regenerate from psychological collapse, and to access profound insight into the unity underlying all forms of existence. At its highest expression, this placement offers deep psychological awareness, an intuitive understanding of hidden realities, and the ability to perceive the deeper structures beneath visible life. At its shadow level, however, Pluto in the 12th house can manifest as fear of one's own strength, compulsive control through planning and order, harsh self-judgment, obsessive focus, and self-destructive inner pressure. This placement may also indicate an individual shaped by a manipulative or oppressive past, who now carries the task of breaking an inherited psychological chain. If Pluto is under intense tension, the person may experience powerful hidden enemies, sudden eruptions of hostility from others, or even tragic outcomes resulting from unseen forces. Despite a strong pull toward familiar psychological patterns, Pluto in the 12th house ultimately demands surrender to uncertainty. True transformation occurs when the individual learns to trust the unknown rather than attempting to dominate it.
If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and support the channel. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which house is your Pluto in, and what kind of transformations have you experienced? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.